Okay, it's me, Geordie Pete Redding, and it's Hollywood Balls, of course. Now, my next guest, I've got to stop. Today's a very special Hollywood Balls for me. I grew up in Trinidad, if you didn't know. So my next guest is a Trini and Toon legend. Welcome to Hollywood Balls, Shaka Hislop.
Thank you very much, Pete. I only found out you spent time in Trinidad recently, as recently as yesterday. So yeah, it's great to have that connection, that added connection.
It is, and you know, it's funny because we used to go all over. I spent my school life in Trinidad. My sister was born there and grew up. My parents love it. We still have many friends from Trinidad. But all of what I remember was and I know we're going to be talking about football, but what I remember was the cricket. And we used to walk past a certain hotel in Trinidad, and the old boys will be sat there and they'd be basically saying that England were going to be touring the West Indies of that summer. And, we were going to get a whipping is the words that they
used. you know the sports scene in Trinidad and the Caribbean well. I mean, it's competitive, yet it's fun. You know, we're there to enjoy it. It's a great place to follow, not just cricket, but all sports.
Indeed. I've got so many questions for you, Shaka, but I've got to take you back to the beginning.
No problem.
You wanted to be a striker, didn't we all? But due to your height, you said that you were the first choice for being put in goal. Did you just embrace that and think, yeah, well, to heck with my striker dream?
I did, so to speak, and you're right, Pete. I used to play striker growing up, and then Trinidad were trying to put together an under-12 national team. I was only 10 years old at the time. I went up for trials with my zone team, and I'd never played in goal before. I was going there as a striker. That took me, of course. I got there, and as I'm walking up just to
embrace it and think, yeah, to heck with my striker dreams.
Well, in the end, I had to. The long story to that, Pete, I was a striker trying to be putting together an under-12 team to play a couple of friendlies against Venezuela. My dad took me for my zonal trials in the East Zone. I'd never played in goal before, and I was going up and join the line to give your name and position. And as I'm coming to the front of the line, the coach just says, "You're the tallest, you're in goal."
In you go.
I'd never put on, I'd never, well, I can't even say put on gloves because this is pre-goalkeeping gloves era, so I'm dating myself a little bit. But I'd never played in goal before, made the zonal team, made the national team, and the rest, as they say, is history. I'd never quite let go of playing out on the field, though. Through my high school years, I went to St. Mary's College in Port of Spain, which well, Trinidad well.
Yeah.
But I played in goal for the when I was young. I played in goal for the under-14s. But then I was still 13 or 14. I played in goal for the under-16s and played out on the field for the under-14s. And then as we moved up a level, I played in goal for the senior team, the first 11 team, but played out in the field for the under-16s. So that's how I maintained some balance between what position I felt was my best and which position was actually my best.
We'll get on to Newcastle in a bit, Shaka, but we're in need of a forward up front, so who knows?
I'm available. I'm available. I'm a free transfer as well.
Now, you earned a scholarship in the US whilst you were pursuing your football career. And it's funny because we've had quite a few guests on here, Ramon Vega, who who played for Tottenham, and they were all saying, and I want you to echo it, how important is it to have a career even when you're chasing your football dreams?
Yeah, listen, so back to my Trinidad days again, as I'm coming to the end of my high school days. So this is before Trinidad and Tobago had a pro league. This is before Major League Soccer in the US. Really, the only options available to me at that point is to pursue a soccer scholarship, or the most realistic of them was to pursue a soccer scholarship, get myself a degree, and find a job with that degree. That's the path that everybody kind of followed, and I did the same. And it was important for me. I feel that those years I spent in the States allowed me to mature and kind of prepare myself for the demands of playing professionally. So I don't regret my time in the US at all. I'll add here in that Dwight York, who played in that very same under-12 team, even though he was a couple of years younger than me, so he was 8 years old playing under-12. But Howard University tried to recruit Dwight when he was coming to the end of his high school years. But of course, Aston Villa stepped in and provided him the opportunity to come straight to professional football, which I think saved him better. So whereas I am very happy for the time I spent at university and allowed me to mature, and that was the right thing for me to do, I don't think I could have made that jump straight from Trinidad to professional football. If Dwight had done the same, I don't think he would have benefited from his time in the US. So, you know, everybody has their own path, and I certainly don't regret mine. I feel it allowed me to mature, allowed me to work on my own time management, knowing what's important, and the distractions that are out there. So it was important for me, and then it also gave me a little bit of a safety net in terms of, well, if things didn't work out.
It's exactly what Raman said, that, you know, that you did have a backup, and even when you do have a successful career, how long is it going to be for? So
exactly.
Speaking of your non-football career, I do have to ask you, what does an internship at NASA consist of?
It consists of playing a lot of golf on the computer, Pete. How that came about? Well, I went to Howard University, which is in Washington, D.C. NASA's headquarters are also in D.C.
Yeah. And
I signed up for a program that got placements for students. And somehow I was placed with NASA headquarters and worked under Greg Switek. I still remember his name as my mentor. He was the lead engineer behind the Space Station Freedom Project. So my overused pun over the years is that everything went over my head, but it was good to sit in on meetings, recognize you know, the kind of intelligence in the room and the kind of work that they were doing there, and just be a witness to it. One of the highlights of my time there that summer, it was the first time that NASA was sending a rocket back into space after the crash some years previously. And I remember sitting in an auditorium room for that. And honestly, you could cut the atmosphere. I've never experienced atmosphere like it. I mean, we could talk about, you know, St. James's Park and the 35 and then 55,000 that you know, creates its own atmosphere. This is just totally different. I mean, but still, it rose the hair on your arms. It really was something to be a part of.
Back to your football. I mean, your English football career kicked off with Reading. You were voted Player of the Season 94-95. My question to you is that it's a big shout for a keeper to be Player of the Season. You must have had a lot of work to do.
Well, I did. So now 94-95, remember. So just to give you the timeline of my time in Reading, I signed in 92.
Yeah.
That 92-93 season, I played less than a dozen games. We finished somewhere around 8th, I believe, in well, second division it was called then. It's now League One. Yeah, it's now League One in today's football. My second season there, I played every game. We got promoted. And then my final season, 94-95, we actually finished second as a newly promoted team. We finished second in what is now the championship. Yeah. But in 95, they were reducing the numbers in the Premier League. So 4 teams got relegated and only 2 got promoted. So Middlesbrough finished top of the league. They went straight up. We finished second, went to the playoffs and lost. So the short answer to your question, Peter, is yes. I did get a lot of work that season because, as I mentioned, we were newly promoted. This was our first season in the championship. I played every single game that year as well, so that helped. So I look back on that with a lot of fond memories.
And many do as well. And of course, it was the catalyst for your arrival at Newcastle in 95, a bit later. What did you know about the Toon before you came to the Northeast?
Well, I obviously followed what was happening that summer in particular. I you follow Newcastle, you see what they're doing. Of course, at the time, I had no connection to Newcastle United. Otherwise, I had no idea that that's where I'd end up playing. But you see what Kevin Keegan is doing, and then all of a sudden, and then the sale of Andy Cole just put Newcastle on the front pages, quite literally. So you want to see what's happening, and then the signings that summer, and so December of '95, I also went back to Trinidad and got married. So there was a lot of speculation around the move. My agent was on the phone every now and then saying that yes, this one is interested. Newcastle are also interested, and I grew up in at the time where Kevin Keegan was at his absolute pomp. So just kind of the mere thought of playing for Kevin Keegan. I couldn't put that into words. I couldn't envision that at all. But then all of a sudden, when I came back up, joined Reading for preseason, things started to happen very quickly. And as I say, the signing of Les Ferdinand, David Ginola, Warren Barton, you knew that Newcastle were going to be making a push at the top of the table. So to finally join, it really was something unexpected and at the same time excited.
I mean, it was a special time. You just reeled the names off. I'm not going to mention Judy's nightclub. I'm sure I've seen you in there before, but I maybe do you disservice.
Yeah. No, you never saw me there. I'm sticking to that story, Pete.
It's always a battle for a goalkeeper to be top dog at what they do, and especially at the Toon. I mean, if you think during your time there, you had Pav and Shay Given. So, I mean, it was pretty good goalkeeping competition all around, wasn't it?
It was. And the story to that was, Pav had been sent off just before the end of the season, if not the last game of the 94-95 season.
Yeah.
So he would have been suspended for, I think it was the first two games of the 95-96 season. So coming in, Kevin Keegan said, you've got the first two games, and from there, it's up to you, how you perform in those two games. I can't remember the first two games now, but I'm pretty sure we started well. We were winning, and the old cliche, you can't change a winning team. So I stayed in the team from there until I got injured at a toe thigh muscle. I think it was around sometime in October at Stamford Bridge, and then Pav came in, and the competition was healthy. Pav is an incredible goalkeeper. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Was an incredible goalkeeper. So once he got in, it then became tough for me to get back in, despite how well I had done previously. So we had that tussle for a couple of years, and then Shay Given came in under Kenny Dalglish, and I'll be honest with you, that was a little bit more straightforward because Kenny had come in, Shay had worked under Kenny Dalglish at Blackburn.
That's right, yeah.
And then once Kenny came in and bought Shay, you kind of felt that Shay was his preferred choice. My last season at Newcastle, so that had been in 97, 98, Shay got injured and I got in the team and played well, and we went on a little bit of a run, and I kept my spot despite Shay getting back fit. But I always felt that Shay would have been Kenny's preferred choice, and that's how it proved. And again, I say that totally understanding. I cannot sit here and express how good both Pav and Shay were as goalkeepers. And for me, kind of taking things one day at a time, one step at a time, not ever expecting to even play professional football, to be sharing a training ground, to be keeping those two out of the starting lineup, even for a short spell. I'm proud of and happy to be a part of that whole process.
And I have to just add to that, that Newcastle they've always been famed for having great number nines and great centre forwards. But at that time, we had an absolute dearth and a wealth of goalkeeping talent, of which you were part of. Now I
keep in mind, let me cut you, Steve Harper also
Yeah,
who
Harps.
was waiting in the wings, a young goalkeeper coming through. Again, I mean, showing up for training, you had to be at your best. If you wanted to stay in the team, you had to be at your absolute best because you were getting challenged from every angle.
From every angle. Now we've had Warren Barton on Hollywood Balls, and my good friend Lee Clark, the Nash himself.
Yes.
We chatted about the tune and that era, of course, that you were a part of. You were a major part of NUFC. So I've got to ask you, in your opinion, and it's a question you must have been asked a million times from fans and pundits alike, how did we not win the league that year? Do you honestly think it was our inexperience of being in that position for the first time?
Yeah, I'll offer two arms to that answer. Yes, I think it was an experience. I think, especially now, looking at football with the kind of experience I've had both as a player and I now work for ESPN in the States, so follow the game. To win a title, you need a near miss. And you see it time and time again, whether it was Manchester City, even with their spending, they come close a couple of times, and then finally they get over the final hurdle. If we want to talk about Liverpool, last season coming as close as they did, or if you want to roll the clock back a few years with under Brendan Rodgers and that now infamous slip by Steven Gerrard, you have to come close once. You know, it's almost a part of the process, and the more you look at teams now and how they build their own legacies, as it were, there's that one season there to start it all off where it just gets away, you know, and looking back on it now, obviously we're in hindsight, that was our near miss, and we should have built on that. But instead of building on that, the club moved to float on the stock market, become a PLC. Kevin Keegan was rather ridiculously ousted. I mean, of all the things I look back on during my time at Newcastle, and I feel bitter about it. The only thing I feel bitter about is the removal of Kevin Keegan, because I thought that was unwarranted, unneeded, and it cost Newcastle its position in the hierarchy of the Premier League, because we took 4 or 5 giant steps backwards, and I mean that in no disrespect to Kenny Dalglish, but I just felt you broke up what was going, what we had going on, and what was working.
There was momentum building, wasn't there?
There was momentum, and we lost that. So we Newcastle, you know, missed an opportunity there in doing that. But in the short term, and just in what happens on the field, the reason we lost that game is because of Peter Schmeichel. And I'll say that we lost 1-0 to Manchester United at St. James's Park.
I remember it well. I was there.
So the only points we dropped at St. James's Park that season, with that loss to Manchester United, and we drew at Spurs on the last day of the season. If we needed to win that game, we would have. But that game against Manchester United, where, listen, Cantona got the headlines for the goal that he scored. But that, for me, was the single best 90-minute performance I had seen from a player, bar none. I hold Peter Schmeichel in the highest regard. And I was on the bench for that game. And I could not believe what I was witnessing. But for Peter Schmeichel, we would have won that game.
Because we battered them. We battered them over 90 minutes.
We absolutely battered them. Absolutely. That was, I say that was the best performance I had seen. I had witnessed with my own 2 eyes by a player, bar none. We battered them. But for Peter Schmeichel, we'd have won that game. But for that game, we'd have won the title.
Ifs and buts. I've got to move you on to West Ham and Pompey, Shaka. You served under Harry Redknapp, you know, who's come to the forefront again with his TV shows. But Harry's just fantastic. What were Harry's qualities as a top manager?
Harry was a good man manager. You know, Harry got you to believe in yourself and play your best football, and that for me was huge. It was a huge attraction to him and to playing for him, not once but twice. as you rightly point out. You know, Harry, I'll admit, was not a tactician. Harry is not one who, you know, kind of looked at the opposition and broke them down and figured out the master game plan. He got in who he felt were talented players and just got them to believe in themselves, got them to play with confidence and ease and an openness. You know, you bring somebody in like Paulo Di Canio, who nobody would touch at the time because of what happened at Sheffield Wednesday and his bad boy attitude and image, and somehow turn him into a team player. You know, you look at all these players that he brought in and got the best out of them. And then more times than not, you know, move them on for a profit. Or you look at the young players that he brought through: Frank Lampard, Rio Ferdinand, Jermaine Defoe, Michael Carrick, Joe Cole. All these players came through and under Harry and found a spot in Harry's starting 11. And that speaks volumes to who he was as a man manager.
Yeah, one of the greatest man managers, I would say, probably. Yeah.
No question.
Coming to country duties, you opted for Trinidad ahead of England. Was that just your route shouting? Because I mean, there was a possibility at one point. There was a real, fork in the path where it could have been either.
Yeah, it was. Listen, I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago. So I was born in England. My dad was in law school in England. Moved back to Trinidad when I was still 2 years old. So I had no recollection of my time in England. And I've always felt, you know, Trinidad and Tobagonian. And growing up, I always dreamt about playing for Trinidad and Tobago. And yes, there was an option to play for England because I was born there. I also represented England with a B squad. I was on the bench for one international friendly against Chile. But I think that was more as a result of circumstance. Again, there's always a backstory. Everything there's always a backstory with me. But Trinidad and Tobago were going to play in the Gold Cup in '98. I had made myself available to that squad, but was told that the squad had already been picked, and so, you know, I was, you know, I couldn't get into the squad or was surplus to requirements, whatever, you know, the reason given was, which is odd given that I was the only goalkeeper playing outside of Trinidad and Tobago. But all the same, I then get named in I think it was Glenn Hoddle was the coach in the B squad, in the England B squad. So I was coming to the end of my contract at Newcastle, so I knew I was going to be out of contract. She was back in the starting 11. So I felt it a good opportunity to put myself in the shop window. So I you know, accepted the call up because of, again, my rejection from Trinidad and Tobago, and I was a week or two out of the Newcastle starting 11. So I felt it was the right thing to do. And strangely, that same B squad, Chris Sutton refused the call up to. He said he was not going to represent, you know, he wasn't going to be, if he wasn't in the A squad, he wasn't going to be in the B squad. And he got torn to shreds in the media for it. So here I am kind of sitting on the sidelines, you know, weighing up my future and my options. And he's getting torn, you know, criticized because he's not going to get called up in the B squad. So I accepted the call up. And then I think it was Tim Flowers got injured in training. So they needed somebody to be on the bench for Nigel Martin. So, you know, then I got bumped up to the A team to sit on the bench. I then got called up again for another B team to play against Switzerland, which I did as an overage player. And you know, that was it. But then actually the coach who selected me for that under-12 team that we spoke about at the very top, Pete, he was promoted to senior team manager and called me and asked me if I would join the Trinidad and Tobago national team.
Your journey's followed.
Exactly. You know, I held him in high regard then, and still do now. You know, he's still alive today, Bertil Sinclair. So I have a lot to thank him for, and so it was without hesitation that I rejoined his squad.
Great stuff. Last question, and I can't let you leave Hollywood Balls. I've asked all the boys. You know what's coming because I briefed you. You've got to keep it clean. But have you got a favourite Tino Asprilla story?
My favorite Tino real story in 3 years. In 3 years of playing with Tino, whenever the clocks either go back or go forward, he would either be an hour late or an hour early for training. He never figured it out. It was absolutely hilarious. So I mean, we would actually look forward to it. I mean, you can feel all the as you come in close and the clocks change, and you could feel all the boys just started to laugh and get ready, and nobody would say anything to Tito. Nobody would say anything, and we just kind of wait. That was the funniest clean story I can tell about. Tito Pete.
He was an absolute legend. I think we'll leave it there. I've got to say, Shaka, it's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to have you on. We will ask if we can catch up. The season's just around the corner. If we can catch up with you on Hollywood Balls during the season, it will be a pleasure.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. I really do.
Okay, ladies and gents of Hollywood Balls, Shaka Hislop.